So, brethren, it's a pleasure being here once again. Tonight's segments will be a short segment, and I will be discussing reasons number two. And reason number two entails because the law is a merit system which consists of blessings and curses. To be under the law also meant that one was under or subject to the curses of the law, as Galatians chapter 3 verse 10 states. On the other hand, the covenant of grace is predicated on the fact that God commits himself to save humanity by his grace and not, N-O-T, by man's works, as Ephesians chapter 2 verses 8 to 9 states. So, from Galatians 3 chapter 10, as I start, therefore, we understand that once one is subject to the covenant called the law, that one is simultaneously subject to the curses of the law. And the question I'm about to ask is, why is this so? That is my question. Why is this so? And the answer to that question is this. This is so because the law is a God-given merit system, which was parenthetically added to the Abrahamic covenantal promise until the seed, meaning Christ, should come, to whom the promise was made, as Galatians chapter 3 verse 19 states. Now, since the original Abrahamic covenantal promise of Genesis chapter 15 verses 18 to 21 states, was not predicated upon Abraham's works, as was required by the covenant called the law, the superiority of the promise of God over the law of God is evidently established. To prove this point, one only has to look at Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 to 68, and observe that while the blessings of the law were contained in 13 verses, 54 verses were needed to list the curses of the law. Moreover, brethren, please look carefully at Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 to 14, and observe that in order to access the blessings of the law, an attendant condition obtained, that is, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 to 2, which state accordingly, and it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all the nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. So that was Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 to 2. Having observed the terms and conditions of the blessings of the first covenant called the law, consider the terms of the Abrahamic covenant of Genesis chapter 15, verse 18, which foreshadowed Christ's covenant of grace, and observe that that covenant had no curse attached to it. God initiated and took the responsibility of fulfilling that covenant, as can be seen by reading the following scriptures, Genesis chapter 15, verse 18, which states, in the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates, Genesis 15, verse 18. Now look at Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 to 9, and see the terms of the new covenant. The following quote highlights, for by grace are ye saved through faith, and that not ourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 to 9. Like the Abrahamic covenant of Genesis chapter 15, verse 18, the new covenant of the grace of God, explained in Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 to 9, was also a divine initiative whose acquisition did not depend upon one's works, but upon the grace and faith of God, which are freely given to any and many who desire to access this new covenant, by simply reposing his or her faith in God's offer of salvation. So, brethren, as I come to a close, by observing the terms and conditions of the Old and New Covenants as explained prior, the superiority of the new covenant of the grace of God over the old covenant called the law of God is evidently established. My brethren, for while the beneficiaries of the old covenant had to work in order to access their blessings, the beneficiaries of the new covenant have no such prerequisites. Instead, all God demands of us is that we trust Him to do what He alone can do for and through us. So, as I come to an end tonight, brethren, for those reasons, if no other, brethren and online listeners, the superiority of the grace of God over the law of God is surely established for all times. So that's the end of my segment tonight. I will be live next week again. Brethren, remember that Jesus Christ is returning and he will be returning soon. So I am asking you, please prepare yourselves for Jesus Christ's return. Spend time and read your holy Bibles. I am aware that persons tend to have a busy schedule, but each day, if it's 1 or 2 chapters, please take that time and spend that time with God. When you draw near to God, He will draw near to you. So, brethren, have a safe and productive week. Remember that Jesus Christ loves you and I love you. So, bye for now.